What's up, y'all? Illegit here with another video for you. Gonna be examining some PLO hands I played in this micro stake session recently. 25 PLO mostly, or almost, or probably exclusively at 25 PLO, if I'm not mistaken. It was a pretty swingy session. Actually, I can bring over the graph real quick. We look at the graph just before. It's kind of hard to see here. That's basically what it looks like. I can make it bigger, but you can see it right there. So I ended up about a buy-in. Yeah, that's a better look at it. Ended up about a buy-in, but as you can see, lots of swings. Made some definite mistakes. Made some errors. So I just thought it would be a pretty good session to go over and just review the big hands, anyways. And yeah, we'll go from there and talk some strategy and work our way through thinking about these hands. Okay, so first big hand, I'm just going in kind of like order of size of pot by both biggest won and biggest lost pots. Okay, here I open obviously aces. This guy three bets me with a ragged double suited hand. He's three bet like more than most people three bet at these stakes. Pretty normal for people to have three betting percentages like you see here on Hofi and Dancing Queen, who are kind of tight aggressive regulars. With their three bets at like around 4%. That's quite normal. So he was three betting pretty wide. Doesn't really matter, obviously, since we have aces and we've got. Oh yeah, sorry about this. I still have to register my poker tracker, but I'll do that. But he's got $30. If you can't see. But so when he's got 30, which is just slightly over, 100 big blinds, like it's 120 or something like that, then this is an easy four bet for value, and then stack off on almost any board post flop when he flats. He'll flat a lot after having three bet, and then the SPR is going to be, well, we'll see what it is in a second. All right, 17 in the middle, and he has some of that as rake, but so it's more like 1675 or something. But anyways, we've got an SPR of like 1.5 or so. So we're never folding. This is a rainbow board, and we have backdoor clubs, so it's pretty good for us actually. Rainbow and disconnected. So yeah, this is an easy just pot get it in basically against his King XX, against his rundowns, again, which he can't really have great wraps on this board. The best he can have is like Queen Jack 10 or 6 7 8, or those hands with a pair. So yeah, this is always easy, just pot and get it in. Not really that interesting. But he had double gutted, so actually he just flatted the flop, even though it was for almost, I potted, so it's like for all the chips. Turn comes the king. I pick up clubs, and obviously king I kind of hate because he could definitely have just king XXX in his range, although I think he would just put it in if he did. Anyways, there's only $7 left and 50 in the pot, so it's an easy show for the rest. And we're 85% favorite here, and we lose. So that was the biggest pot we lost in the session. All right, and then okay, sorry. Let's see. Is there a way to just scroll to the next big hand? I'm not sure. All right, well, I'm just gonna bring it up. Replay hand. Okay, bring it over here. That's kind of a ghetto way to do it, but like I don't really know what else to do, so whatever. All right, and then here, like you have to bring up a new window every time, I guess. All right. Shouldn't have to, but I don't know how to scroll through the replayer. Those hands. Okay. Anyways, here we go. Now this hand's weird. I would never play this hand the way that I played it, except for, as you can see here, even from the stats, or you should be able to see, this guy has been playing quite maniacally. I've spoiled the hand, and both these hands I've spoiled the hands that they end up having. So that's unfortunate. Maybe I'll turn that off. There's a way to turn that off too. Options, show known hold cards. All right, I won't spoil hands in the future. Sorry about that, but we'll still just keep going with this. Okay, so against this guy, if you can see at his stats, he's running, or you should be able to see his stats. Yeah, he's running 73, 65, and 3-bet 50. So basically just maniacally spazzing out, and he's not just pre-flop, he's doing like post-flop insanity too, just completely donating, essentially throwing his money away. So we just flat here against someone like that, obviously with a hand like this, which can flop nutted quite easily on the button. Much better than 3-betting, because he just might spaz 4-bet, and then that's really bad for us with a hand like this. We flop a straight. Okay, and it's only, and like obviously when you flop a straight on a board like this where you have the under straight, you always have to be like quite careful, and like the play against a c bet like this, against anyone who's not just like donating their stacks, is just flat. And sometimes even against someone like that, you can just flat and then just call down. You know what I mean? But he was playing such that like so wild and so insane that like I just thought he would easily get in worse hands here. Like he could just have queen XX, or queen X, queen something's with a straight draw. He could have like just bare aces or kings. Literally the way he's playing, he could get in like all of his stack like that. And then also like two pairs, like all kinds of hands that I totally smash. He would get in. Of course, if he does have king queen or queen eight, we're gonna get it in, in extremely bad shape, drawing almost dead. But against this guy who like as you can see and in reality was completely spazzing out, I just decided to go for a pretty small raise, and then he jams. And like I said, against him, I mean, still I'm worried obviously that he has king queen, or queen eight, but we're blocking eight, so it makes it less likely as queen eight. Basically, if he has king queen, I just feel like it's a cooler against this guy, so we just go ahead and shove for the rest here, and he has queen eight, as we can see. So that was a weird hand. I don't know that I would play it any different against that guy who was completely like spazzing out of his mind, but it is important to realize that the way I played that hand was very read specific against a particular player playing a particular way, and I would never play it against anyone who's like playing anywhere semi close to rationally or like normally in any sense. Okay. Next hand. How do we go to the next hand? Is there a next hand? Yeah. Don't know. All right, and then next hand, here we go. All right, so these are all the losing hands we're starting with here, as I said. Okay, and all right, this hand's kind of interesting. Okay, he opens. Where is he? Okay, yeah, he's on the button. I'm in the small blind. He's also been playing quite loose aggressive. Not necessarily 3-betting, but you can see he's running 37-27. It's not like totally crazy, but pretty loose aggressive. I 3-bet king jack jack. He's on the button. I'm in the small. He's been opening a ton of hands. It's pretty easy 3-bet against in that situation. Flop comes 9-3-5 with two diamonds. Not a great flop for us, obviously. It's got some low connectedness. It could hit some of his hands for a guy who's playing very loose aggressive. Pretty hard, and but also we don't want to get like bet. This is a good spot basically for a check, because you don't want to bet and get shoved off of your hand, because there are good turns, like a 3 or a 5 are usually pretty good turns. A king or a jack clearly are good turns against the range of hands that he can have, and even something like an offsuit 10 is a pretty good turn. So basically, our hand is strong enough that we don't want to get knocked off of our equity here, and we also want to control the size of the pot. So I think a check is the best play on a board like this here, heads up out of position a lot of the time. And then he goes and bets. This is like 4/5 pot or something in reality, because some of that's rake. And so I just tank and call, and I think that's like standard. 5 is a really good turn. Now the question is, we have about a pot size bet left. He bet pretty big on the flop. He does have some 2-pair and full house combos like in his range, but I think it's much more likely he has some kind of draw. And the 5, like I said, is generally will be a decent card for us. Although the 5, it does hit a hand that his hands that have like 5 something. That's also a diamond draw, which will like this flop, obviously. Um, but if we check, I think he'll just check back a lot with his draws, and we're giving a free card. And like the only thing we lose to now is 5x or a full house, which like is fairly unlikely. So in this situation, in a 3-bet pot, SPR of only one, I just decided to jam it in here. It's kind of close and questionable. If I do get called, obviously I'm usually getting called by 5x, but sometimes so I'm kind of it's I don't like it that much, basically, because um, just too often I'm only getting called by better hands. But I also do not really love check folding. So basic, but it's not a terrible play just because you protect your hand against diamond draws or like wraps or something like that, from realizing their equity against you. So I still don't hate it. Against his range, it's like not the worst play in the world, honestly, and it's actually kind of okay. I do kind of like it, even though when you do get called, it's mostly going to be by better hands. Still a reasonable play, I think. But you could also like check call, check call a jam if he jams turn to induce bluffs against his to induce bluffs from his weaker hands. Um, but you also risk giving a free card if you do that. So it's kind of weird. He puts it in, which we hate at this point, but it's only $5 more, so we call. And he had a 5 with diamonds, so it's like one of the hands that we were worried that he might have. Interesting, he bets full pot on the flop, or close to full pot, with a 5 and a low flush draw. Um, Not that notable, I guess. Okay. And then this hand, let's go to the next. Replay hand. Okay. Sorry. I don't know how to get this to just open a bunch of hands in a row. Anyways, it's not taking that long to open them, but okay. And then here, let's see what we got going on. All right, here we've got pretty bad kings, but we still open them under the gun. I'm not sure if I should open kings this bad under the gun, but we're only 5-handed actually, so I think it's pretty standard. Calls. Okay, this hand's pretty uninteresting just because we're super nutted on a dry board. So I go ahead and c-bet here. It's a pretty dry board. You could check sometimes this board to balance your range, which you will sometimes check these dry boards, but mostly we're going to be c-betting a board this dry against 2 opponents. So I do like c-betting it when we have top set as well. I c-bet like 2/3. If you can't see here, he's raised to 7.6.2. I don't know why the HUD covers it. So we love that, obviously. There's literally nothing we're protecting from, so it would be very bad to just re-raise here. Although most of the time he's going to have, like, say, 2 pair, or or we're going to have him set over set, because what else is he raising on a board like this? Like, literally nothing. So it's not terrible to jam here and just get it in, because I don't think he's extremely rarely raise folding this big, at least most types of players at these stakes. But just in case he is bluffing, it's much better to just call, and then just check call turn, check call a shove on the turn, check turn, he shoves, we still have the nuts, we get it in. He has 4 on the river, he has 7, 8, 5 deuce. So we had him like almost completely dead on the flop, but he turns an open ender on the turn. And then we still have, actually, let me go back, look at our equities here, just because it's kind of funny. Okay, we're 84% on the flop, as you can see right here, 80% on the turn, because now, yeah, he picked up the open ender, get it in as 80%, and he binks on us. So nothing too interesting in that hand, except for how he played it. Pre is, we could maybe talk about. I don't really like flatting hands like this. Pre, they're double suited with the 2 dangler. It's like, it really kind of hurts. Obviously hands like 8, 7, 5, 4 double suited are a lot nicer. But he is on the button. It's not horrible to flat it, but in general I would just fold this even in position against an open most of the time. Worth noting. All right, so we're still going through all the losing hands, as it were. Um, the big losing hands. So that is kind of a spoiler. Sorry, but but yeah, the order I'm going through is just losing hands currently. Okay, and then here we've got kings again. This guy's got that. Hard to see, kind of. Okay, like, all right. Open kings here, obviously with an ace block. Oh no, sorry, we don't have kings. This is us over here. We're hero over here, and we've got ace 4 5 3. Got small blind calls. This is a okay overcall. It's obviously not a great hand in pot limit Omaha high, but it does have some nuttiness. The three hearts obviously hurt. I don't know if I'm supposed to be defending this in the big, but I did, and I think it's okay. Flop nut flush draw, but we have three hearts, and it's kind of high board. There is a deuce out there though, which is nice. He c bets. This is like full pot. I don't, or no, it's not. It's like 2/3 pot or something like that. Or no, it's more like 3/4 pot. And small blind folds. Could check raise sometimes here against aggressive opponents. This guy was pretty aggressive. It's not unreasonable to check raise here, but also it's okay to call, especially with the deuce out. There's just lots of good turns, not in addition to an actual heart. So we just check call, and we get one of the best turn cards that's not a heart. Gives us a full wrap, ace 4 5 6, or yeah, ace 4 5 6 all make us straight now, and mostly the nut straight. Um, yeah, and so we still have the nut flush draw. Check to him on the turn. He's been quite aggressive on turns. He was, still pretty aggressive. We definitely don't mind him betting this turn. With what we have tons of nutted outs, and he goes and bets pot. Now I contemplated just like jamming here, because we have such good equity when called, and we can possibly, although his sizing is what kind of stopped me from doing it because he went full pot. His sizing was indicative of him having a big hand like king queen something something with maybe spades, or like kings, which again I've actually spoiled on this hand. We've see ahead of time what he has, and so sorry about that again. But yeah, like not knowing what he had, I was contemplating, do we just jam here, and try to do a semi bluff with a very big draw, and I decided not against it just because of his sizing was really big, and I thought that he was weighted more towards like strongish made hands like king queen, king king, queen queen type hands. In which case I want to see a river and then get it in, and the river we make a straight, and but backdoor spades also get there. So it's kind of a weird spot. We only have a pot size bet left. I do think, like most of the time here, if you jam, you're only getting called by better. But when we've put him on a lot of king king, queen queen, and king queen XX type hands on the turn, based on his sizing, and although some of those that also have spades, we can get hero called on this particular river because it's fairly innocuous, and the types of draws that are most likely for us to have are more like Jack 10 9 or hearts, which did miss. So like, and if we check, are we going to fold if he jams? I'm not really sure. It's probably still better to check and see, because he might, because it's spades, like even if he made spades, like with some of his flushes, he might check some of them back. Like if he had like kings with like say 8 7 of spades or something like that, he probably is just going to check that back on the river most of the time, and we're going to save our stack. And like it's kind of hard to get hero called with, we have a full pot size bet left almost. It's hard to get hero called by buy top set if we go for a full pot size bet. Another option is maybe to go for a small like blocker bet and then fold to a jam. I don't like, if he has kings or queens, he's going to call a small bet, potentially, like, or like if it's small enough, he'll definitely call it. If you bet like $4 or something, and he's not going to raise unless he has spades, and also like only if he has high spades. A lot of times he'll just call if he has small spades. So I think I did one of the like worst options, which was actually just jam, which I would do but that's more consistent with my sizing. If I was bluffing, if I was turning my hand into a bluff on the river, if I had just the ace of spades somehow with some kind of like straight draw, like ace, ace jack 10 or something like that with just the ace of spades, I would definitely jam rather than do a small sizing or anything. So I for balancing, like the shove is okay, but I don't really like it. I think an interesting play is a smaller blocker bet and fold to jam on the river. Even though we only have a pot size bet left, I do think that's a pretty interesting line, and I kind of prefer it. Interesting hand. Sorry to have spoiled it again. I'm going to get rid of these, and we'll go to the next losing hand here. And then this is getting most of the bigger losing hands. After this, we can switch to hands where we win. Okay, there we go. Okay, this was a pretty interesting hand too, just because he ended up showing. Okay, this guy's been playing Sardine 9 up here in the upper right. As you can see from his numbers, been playing quite loose aggressive, 50% of hands, raising 24%, and also spazzing kind of post-flop too. So he opens at 85. We have King Queen 10-8 double suited in the small blind. Could just flat here. And as you can see, in this session, we had been playing pretty loose aggressive. Although most of these hands, these numbers for us running 48-30, that was from a lot of playing heads up. And it wasn't with Sardine. So like his numbers are for mostly playing full ring. Anyways, so it looks like we're playing super loose aggressive, but that was from a lot of hands heads up at this table with another player. Anyways, before it kind of like kicked off and got a full ring going. Anyways, so against this guy with a hand like this, I decided to 3-bet it just for value to try to get heads up with him possibly, and build a pot with a very nice hand, obviously, that we've got. Comes 7-3-3 rainbow. Now this is interesting. Most people, because not a ton of 3-betting goes on at these stakes, most of the time I will have aces, and most of the time people, although I do 3-bet more than most people do. And then this board is super innocuous. It's really hard for anyone to be able to continue unless they are going to hero get it in. So, what's his name? Sardine 9 has only $12 left. So if he has hands like kings or queens that he didn't want to shove pre, he might hero get it in on this board. But we're blocking both kings and queens with King Queen 10-8. So this and the other guys. So basically, my point is there's very little that anyone's going to be able to get it in with here, even 4 ways. And if we had aces, we would just c-bet small and get it in against the shorter stacks, the $12 stack and the $6 stack, and maybe fold to stand, but probably not. Like if we had aces like we're representing. So I think I think c-betting on this particular board when you're repping aces is even 4 ways, so it's a 4-way bluff. You're just basically banking on the fact no one has a 3. I think it's pretty good. So I go 4 into, it's not 14, it's more like 12 or 13 or something that's in there once you take out the rake. Yeah, but basically a third pot. I could have gone slightly smaller, even like 320 or something like that. Unfortunately, this guy raises and shoves for his $12 stack. So I figured, okay, he most likely just played some ragged hand that has a 3 when he's playing 50% of hands. Sai comes back to me. I just fold. He actually shows. Yeah, and he shows 9s. Blocking aces, though, so it's not as bad. But, like, I had not been... Again, my 3-betting percentage looks high here, but a lot of that at this session was from heads-up hands and short-handed. So, like, I wasn't playing that aggressive when we were at full ring. And, I'd c-bet. Like, it's very easy... Even though he is blocking aces, so it makes it slightly less likely that I actually have them. Yeah, it's still like pretty likely I have aces, or if I have kings, I'm probably not folding to his shove if I've 3-bet some kind of king XX hand. So I'm not really sure I like his play. In fact, no, I definitely don't like his play. It's a pretty easy fold on the flop for him. Yeah, 4 ways, and I had c-bet into 4 people. Anyways, but it was interesting that he showed the hand that he had. But yeah, it was an interesting hand, and I do like the way I played it. I think I played it fine. All right, next losing hand we've got here is Ace's hand. All right, let's see what happens here. Sardine folds, the guy from the last hand. Okay, this guy seemed like tightish reg from his numbers. I don't really have much of a read on him though. I three bet from the big. It's actually a weird hand. So it comes 8-8-5, and we have the ace of clubs. I end up checking after tanking for a while. I would see bet this board a reasonable amount when I have aces or when I have bluffs or when I have whatever after three betting. But it's also an okay board to check. And he checks back. Turn comes a deuce. So we're blocking both the nut and the both nut flush draws, reducing the sorts of hands that he's going to have that want to continue on this board. And when he checks back flop, it doesn't really look like he has many eights in his range unless he's like because like most 8xx hands are going to want to bet this flop, to get it in against flush draws or protect from flush draws. So yeah, so now at this point when it's looking like he has no eight, like pretty likely, and the best he can have are like medium flush draws, your non-nut flush draws. I think it's a pretty easy just value bet for protection here. So I go for $4 into about 480 or something like that. I forget what it was once you take out the rake, and then he effectively almost jams. This is a very weird spot because he can't have nut flush draws. He The combo draws that he can have are limited, like maybe a double flush draw with like ace four or something like that, ace 3 4, or ace six, or well, not even ace, like we said, we're blocking both of those. So like low flush draws with it just doesn't make any sense for him to have like 6 7 9 with flush draws, with two flush draws or something. Like maybe would play like this, but even those type of hands could would possibly bet the flop. It's just a very weird situation. He might turn something like kings with hearts into a bluff here, but we're gonna have to stack off for our whole stack, and his stats were just not super aggressive on turns. On actually his stats on turn were he only had called a bet 1 out of 12 times someone had bet into him, and he had folded 11 out of 12. So that's pretty indicative of him just having an 8 and having slow played it on the flop, which is possible. But yeah, it's just a very weird spot. I ended up folding, and I think it's correct. At these levels and against a guy who was not super tricky or aggressive in in on turns and rivers. He was pretty aggressive on rivers actually, but on turns he was extremely passive when bet into. So unless he happened to turn some hand like, but also it's hard for him to have an 8 and check back the flop. So it is a very strange hand. I'm not really sure what to do. Let me know what you think about that hand on the turn. You don't want to stack off obviously with bare aces most of the time on a paired board. In a spot where you're repping aces and your hands kind of face up. But in that spot, it might have been the right play. Like I just don't know what he's repping. He's repping an 8, but an 8 that check back the flop. And how many are there of those? Why is the 8 not betting the flop? And it's hard, obviously, for him to have like hands like fives or deuces when he's a fairly tight opener, and raise calling a 3-bet with hands that have 5-5 and deuce in them, extremely unlikely. So. Yeah, it's a weird pot. I don't really know if I like my fold. Might have been a mistake, but having the ace heart blocker and the 8 of club blocker reduces the likelihood that he's turning some hand into a bluff because he can't have any nut flush draws. So I do think it's okay, but yeah, it's kind of a strange spot, and I'm not sure what I think about it. All right, we'll do one more losing hand, and then we'll go to some winning hands. I've had enough of this losing garbage. Okay, big on the button opens, but he opens pretty small. I just flat this in the small blind. I think it's all right. Okay, flop 3 pair. I just go ahead and donk out in a small pot 3 ways. I think that's fine with 3 pair. I do want to have a leading range here sometimes, and I'm going to have like combo draws and hands like this, 3 pairs, and sometimes hands like maybe like king queen 10 with the king high flush draw or something like that. Yeah, so I think it's fine to lead here. He just calls turn, brings in 9-10 gets there. I check We also have a 10 blocking 9-10 though, and there are two flush draws out. So I think it's okay to just check call here. Obviously, mostly looking to fill up, but also, a 9 could chop, and he might shut down a bluff that he has on the river. So I just check call. River brings a 5. Now any 9XX, any 9 hand that has, one of the other relevant cards has a straight. I check. He bombs. Um, or he doesn't bomb, he goes half pot, which is even more disconcerting. I think it's a pretty easy fold at that point. Yeah, not too interesting of a hand. I think it was all right. No, all right, one more losing hand actually. Let's see what we got here. This hand's, I think this was the same guy who showed us the ace. He showed us the 9s earlier. He min raises under the gun, get 2 flats. So they're pretty unlikely to have aces, all of them, because of the min raise and the flats. Yeah, so I go ahead and squeeze with 10, 9, 8, 7 single suited against a min raise, and basically to semi bluff and build a pot both against with a reasonably strong hand. 7-3-3, we're blocking them having 7-7-XX. Again, this is very similar to the previous hand that we had, where there's a low paired board. We're in a 3-bet pot, and we're most of the time going to have, or a lot of the time, going to have ace-ace-XX combos. We just go ahead and c-bet a little under half pot, repping aces, or repping essentially aces mostly. And then we just get jammed on this board. This time there's nothing out I think we can really do with top pair, no kickers, so that's pretty easy fold. All right, and then now we're going to switch this to hands 1. Unless I see, okay, wait, no, there's one more interesting hand. All right, sorry. All right, we'll do this one. We'll do this one as well. It's not that interesting. But here's another, losing hand. What happened here? Okay, I raise. Big blind 3-bets. He hasn't been 3-betting that much, so obviously there's some aces in his range, or mostly aces in his range, but I'm blocking aces. I go ahead and call the 3-bet. It's questionable, but I do it. Comes queen 9-4, 2 hearts, pretty wet board. We do have some showdown value now, though. He checks, which is interesting. He only has we only have an SPR of about 2. But I don't really want to get it in on this board against a guy with a tight 3-betting range. So I just check back. Turn comes a 9 and he bets, but only half pot. Obviously, he has some aces still in his range and some kings. But we're blocking aces. We're blocking queen, queen. I decide to just call here. And now 4 comes off, so we lose to any 9, any 4, aces and kings still. He checks. This is an easy check back, just for when he has king queen jack 10 type hands or whatever, and we have the best hand, or when he has just air and we're good, and we lose less. But he has exactly a pot size bet left, or about, and we have we're blocking top full house, so could conceivably try turning your hand into a bluff, trying to get kings or aces to fold against a very tight 3-better, but I don't think it works often enough, and we have too much showdown, I think, so we just check it back, and he wins with dry aces. So, but yeah, probably could just fold pre-flop there. All right, now we're going to switch to our winning hands, so that's a spoiler for you there, starting with our biggest winning hands and then going down. All right, Hofi raises. He's a reg. He's kind of like not that good of a reg, I think, but he's a reg. We 3-bet him with a nice double suited rundown hand in position. That's fine. We get cold 4-bet from behind by a stack that has a lot, though. Both of us have a lot. He makes it 980 or 960, I think, whatever that is, and Hofi calls in the middle. Now we're closing the action. Pretty against a 4-bet, he's gonna have aces a decent amount, unfortunately, but we're getting a very good price to see a flop here 3 ways with 2 high flushes and a lot of connectedness. So I do think we can call here profitably, 3 ways especially, because we can just get it in post flop, dominating both of them sometimes. So we go ahead and call, and we go ahead and flop the nuts. Second nuts. King king is the only thing that beats us, pretty easy. Check to Hofi, who has a half pot size bet. He jams. We tank for a while because we want the small blind who probably has aces and is drawing us, pretty close to dead to get it in too. Although I think if it goes shove shove, he's probably folding aces most of the time. So there's not much we can do, but we tank a little bit just to make it look like we have like a flush draw that we're not sure we want to go with. And then finally, I shove the rest in and we hold. So not that interesting. He had 10 10 9 9. Okay, cool. All right, here we go. Next hand. All right. Now this goes back to the guy where from one of my early losing hands where we had flopped a straight with 8 8 ace 8 8 7 double suited, and he was the maniac. As you can see, this is still him. He's still a maniac, and he's at this point, the other hand was earlier, but at this point he's just been completely spazzing, like, and I'm like, okay, what is he doing? Just getting tons in with stuff that makes no sense. So I go ahead and 3-bet him here, and with ace, queen 8 single suited to the ace. I think that's very standard against this player. He 4-bets, again, like he's been playing extremely maniacal, including 3-betting and 4-betting like a ton of hands. So I'm actually just very happy that I have the best hand here. I'm blocking aces, I have queens, I have a suited ace. I just go ahead and jam for value here. Not jam, but almost all the way in. He just calls, so we're ahead. Pretty connected board, but there's 33 in the middle. We only have 14 behind, so we're calling off the rest. He jams the rest, not even a spade on board, so like not the best board. We do have an 8 blocking some of his draws, but whatever, we call. And he has, let me show cards now at this point. He has 5 6 9 2, just like random 4 cards that he 4-bet and called a 5-bet with. And now he actually has 55% on this flop, sadly. But we fade it. We fade a lot, and we take it down. So that was cool. We basically got that guy's, got our money back from that guy who was, totally just out of control, maniacal. So that was cool. That was also a very read-specific hand. There's almost no circumstances against any other players, where I would be playing the hand that way. Sorry, spoiler again. Where I would be playing the hand that way. It was just specifically because he was a maniac that we went with the 4-bet, call, no, where we went with the 3-bet and 5-bet line, which is fine against him, as we saw, because he just had 4 rags. That made no sense. Okay, here we got Hofi, who opens in the cutoff. We 3-bet, and like I said, he's kind of like a tight aggressive, but like he's tight pre-flop, but pretty like aggro post-flop. Hofi, like he's not shy of bluffing. So we 3-bet him in position with aces on the button here. Another, it's funny how many times we've been repping aces on a board like this, right? We've seen 3 hands like this already where it came 7-3-3, 9-3-3 on this one, and then the other one was something 3-3 also, and also rainbow. And a couple of those we were repping aces but didn't have it. Now we actually are going to be repping it and have it. So it checks to us. We c-bet small, like less than half pot on this board. Reason we bet so small is we either have the best hand and we're light years ahead of whatever they can have, because at most, like if they've got a pair, they've got 2 outs. If they've got backdoor draws, they have to hit 2 cards. So it's like, and for our bluffs, if we're bluffing, we also want to save money by betting smaller. So for all purposes in a 3-bet pot, this serves our purposes the best as a small c-bet. So it's pretty easy, just small c-bet. Could go even smaller than this, honestly. I bet 3. You could bet like 275 or something, just very easy. But because I bet so small, well, not because, but Hofi check raises me almost all in, and like I said, he's pretty tight pre-flop. I just don't think he has that many 3s in his range. If he has a 3, he could easily slow play it. If he's got 9s full, he's definitely going to slow play it, or almost definitely. Like he's not just going to check jam this flop. So I think for a while here though, like that he definitely has some 3s in his range, like maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 hands like that, or not that many though, that raise and call a three bet. I mean, he just doesn't have a ton of threes in his range. So eventually, I just end up going with the hand here because I bet very small on the flop, which could induce someone like him to bluff. He is very aggro post flop, and we just get it in against Ace King Jack 9, where he had top pair and just turned it into a bluff essentially, which was interesting. That one was hard though. Took me a long time to call and get it in there, and I'm not. And it's kind of the reason I did though. One of the reasons is um, uh, the we talked about on those other hands where I had c bet on like 9-3-3 boards and ended up folding in a three bet pot, and obviously you can't. Sometimes you're just going to have to stack off, even though someone is repping a three, and the SPR is not that big. Because otherwise, if you're folding aces every time you see bet a board like this, then you're just folding them too much. And sure enough, the guy did not have a three, and our read was correct that he just doesn't have very many threes in his range, and if he does, he's probably not. I mean, he definitely could check bomb them, like if he had a three, but he just doesn't have that many. So got it in good and won there. Interesting hand though. Here we go, and here we've got this. Okay, and it goes. Guy limps under the gun. We raise ISO him on the button. Get a call from the blinds. The limper folds. Oh yeah, this hand was interesting. So I flop top pair, an open ender, and the high end of the open ender, a six, gives me the like the super nuts. So it's kind of interesting. He donks into me full pot after I had raised pre on this board. It's pretty dry, low board. I don't know what he's representing. This guy's been extremely loose pre-flop, but then pretty passive post. Quite passive. So, like, he could easily have hands that hit this board, although we're blocking some of the hands that hit this board, right? Like, we have a 4, we have a 5. But at any rate, he wasn't donking a lot. He's been very loose passive, so I still think, like, he has, like, sometimes he has ace-5 here, or just has 5-6. So we just flat, even though it's we can't really just fold at this point. Turn comes a 7. He donks full pot again, and now I'm pretty worried that he has ace-5 or 5-6. And we only have top 2, but we also have we still have the straight draw, and we have top 2. So I go ahead and call. And we bink a 4 on the river, which is very nice. He bets smallish into a big pot. We jam for the rest, and he calls. And he had 5-6, and he was and he was just leading with it. So could potentially, against someone like him, who is very loose passive and is not betting that much, you could potentially fold the turn. I didn't. It's probably a mistake just because he has, we have a 7, a 4, or a 6 probably, or 6 definitely is an out. 7 and a 4 almost definitely are out. So, but still, that's just like not a lot of outs. And most of the time when he's firing on the turn, he has 5-6, so he's blocking a 6 that we can hit. And like if you have a read against a player that like that, and we did, that he was super loose passive, you could probably just fold the turn. It's kind of gross, but like it's probably better than what we did, honestly. Because he like when he donks the turn, he could have, or when he donks the flop, he could have like 2 pair type hands, but once he donks again on the turn full pot, it's just like almost always the straight. So when it's a loose passive player, so yeah, that's probably a mistake that we made on the turn there. Here, this is head up with forget the guy's name, but anyways, okay. And then on this board, we flop a full wrap and a pair, so that's very nice. And he's been quite aggressive. So we raised flop, he 3-bet, we called. He goes ahead and c-bets flop. I think there's tons of just ace XX hands in his range that are not, aces. Where heads up, it's not like his 3-betting range is only aces or even mostly aces. And against most of his hands that are not aces up or a set of aces, we're going to be in at least decent shape, and sometimes we're going to be ahead. So I don't mind either just calling or jamming here. He goes with a biggish c-bet, so If we can get him to fold his equity, like if we can get him to fold hands, like although he c-bet full pot, so I just don't think he's folding that much. Um, but if we can get him to fold the equity of a hand, like king XX or something, that's good for us. Even though we have a pretty good hand that performs quite well against kings, it's still like better for him to if we can get him to better if we can get him to fold. So I decided to just jam here. You can call and see a turn and then get it in on good turns and stuff like that too. But with a pair and the wrap, I think it's fine to just jam. So I jam heads up. We're playing heads up, so I jam. He calls, and he had ace queen jack jack. So he did just have a bare aces hand, which we were. If we look at the percentages on earlier streets, we were 60% against. So that's the thing is like against hands like this one, we're just a favorite to win, and then against some other hands, we're not a big dog. Like even when he has aces, which we are a dog against, but even against that, we're not a huge dog. So yeah, I kind of just like jamming there, heads up. That was a heads up hand though, so it's kind of different from a lot of our other hands. Okay. All right. Now here we go. Here goes Hofi, who we've battled before, and was okay. We'll look at session stats, and is pretty like tight aggressive pre-flop, but then post-flop pretty aggro. He's the one who went with the ace king jack 9 on the 9-3-3 and turned it into a semi bluff, I guess, against me, check jamming the 9-3-3 board. So we 3-bet him here with our double suited queens hand. I think actually to that hand where he had lost to us and we had doubled through after the hand that we just reviewed where he had ace king jack 9 or whatever and we had aces. I think that was not long before this hand. I think it is a different table, but yeah, that this was not long before this hand. Okay, we go ahead and flop the quads. We've got the world, just totally smashing the board. Nice. He checks. Pretty easy check back here. Like if we did have aces, for example, we definitely could check back a board this like wet, high, and connected, just for pot control. Like we would check back a ton of things on this board that are medium strength. So we also want to have some strong checkbacks in our range, of course. When we do check back this flops in a 3-bet flops pot, so we check back. Now we don't have the nuts anymore. 10-9 of hearts and ace 10 of hearts both beat us, but we're still pretty happy with our hand, of course. We block kings from being out there though, so it's going to be hard to get action, I think, unless he starts bluffing, which, as we've talked about, he definitely could. Okay. It's funny they show the percentages because I have 99% against his 1% because it's like they're just treating this like an unknown hand, so it's like 1% of the time he does have a straight flush, but that's funny. Anyway, so he bets about a little over half or about half on the turn. No, that was over half pot on the turn. We just call at this point, obviously. The stacks are such that if he has kings or jacks or something like that, we're going to be able to just, or even like the nut flush, that we're probably going to be able to get his stack on the river anyways. So raising here would be bad, I think. And also would like knock out all of his like bare ace of heart bluffs or just like pure bluffs, whatever he might have that's a bluff. So we just call. River comes a jack. He bets 10 into, whatever that was, 1250 or something. And he only has 8 behind, so pretty easy. Just min raise all in, and he folds, unfortunately. He did not have a straight flush, but he also did not have quad jacks or king's full. Sad. Cry, cry, cry. Okay. And then here, we've got kings. Go open kings, get 3-bet. Okay, yeah, this is another read-specific play that we made here. So these are pretty trashy kings, obviously. Most of the time when you get 3-bet by them, you can just like flat in position most of the time, or sometimes just like fold them, depending. But this guy, as you can see, like over 10 hands, he was running 60, 50, 33. He's just like spazzing out like very openly, just like donating his money. So I go ahead and just 5-bet here to get it in with what I assume is probably the best hand most of the time. And he just calls, and now I know I have the best hand. So and of course it comes ace 8-7, pretty gross. Not only does it come ace 8-7, but he donks into me after 3-bet and just calling a 4-bet when vast majority of my range is aces, sometimes kings. Anyways, he jams into us for half pot. pretty gross, but still not folding after having 4-bet pre and got, like half of his stack in pre-flop. I'm just calling off on here. I'm not folding. So I call it off, and he has queen 10 10 deuce. And like the flop didn't help him at all, and he just open jammed. Pretty terrible there, sir. But yeah, that was also read specific. I would never 4-bet this hand except for in the case where someone is totally spazzing out hardcore. And in that case, it makes more sense. This hand was kind of weird because I limped pre, which I very rarely do. Let's see what happens here. So this guy limps under the gun, and most of the time I would either like raise or fold. I think I was not really paying attention on this table, and like I limp behind because I had action going on other tables. Mostly, if I'm going to play this hand over a limper, I prefer to isolate, like raise over them in position. I don't know why I didn't, like I should have. And this guy turned out to be like very bad, this limper. So I definitely should have. We go ahead and flop the nuts though. Too bad it's not in a raised pot, which it should have been. He goes and leads half pot. I raise, gets a cold call, and he calls. Okay, we still have the nuts on the turn, and we have redraws now to diamonds and like the higher wrap. Like we've got everything. We've got the current nuts, like, and we're blocking any but like all the other straight outs we also have. For example, like 6, 8, or 9, all that stuff. So or 6, yeah, exactly. We like yeah, we're just totally smashing everything. We go ahead and pot the turn, which is fine against these two, especially with this hand. We love it. He folds. He calls. Now it's kind of weird. We make 8 high flush draw, or 8 high flush on the river. It's a dubious spot, like not super clear what we're supposed to do here. Yeah, so just because the pot is very big now at this point, $20 in the pot, and we only have a pot size bet left. He checks. Once he checks, it's pretty unlikely that he has diamonds, of course, and especially like nutted diamonds. Like he's almost always going to fire if he's got king high diamonds or probably even queen high diamonds, which means pretty likely we have the best hand, but also extremely hard to get called by a worse hand. Like ace 4 now at this point might fold, like if he had ace 4, and his sets and 2 pairs are definitely folding at this point. So I don't really like betting, I guess, but it's kind of close. Like you could go for like a small value bet or something too, like maybe like a $4 or $5, and then just reevaluate if he calls or check raises or whatever. But we just check back and win. Kind of a weird hand. Especially on the end. Yeah, we could have won more possibly if we raised pre-flop, and we're not like messing around. I almost never limp behind because raising like when I'm in position, anyways, because raising is such a good play to get value from other hands. Okay, here we've got pretty premium queens. Red Bengal. Okay, we're back in a hand with the guy who was a total spaz. We 3-bet him for value. This was back before he had lost his stack, and he had like built up his stack playing maniacally. He just calls. We flop trips, which is nice. He checks. We c-bet. I think I c-bet smallish, which I probably would do if I had aces too against this guy, or if I had like king queen 9 type hands or whatever, or like whatever I have. Like I think c-betting smallish is what I would do here mostly. He calls. We fill up on the turn. He checks. We bet half pot this time because like we're repping aces so hard that like we don't want him to fold his king queens. So we want to bet a size that he could call and then size up for a river shove. He calls. We hit another ace on the river. It's unfortunate because, I mean, it shouldn't change things, right? Like if he has king queen and he called the turn, that should make it a lot less likely that we have aces full. And so then like on the river we have less than a pot size bet. Now if he has king queen, he should be more likely to call than he was on the turn, right? Because now the ace makes it less likely that we have a full house. but he folds. Maybe he didn't have king queen. Maybe he had something else, and that was unfortunate. I mean, we won the pot, but it's unfortunate he folded river because he was such a spaz. We were just waiting to get his money. All right, we'll do one more hand. Actually, I'll skim through the win one hands real quick to make sure there's not like interesting ones that are slightly smaller or something. Um, okay, we'll do that one maybe. Okay, yeah, and this one. All right. Yeah, we'll do the next three hands. All right, three more hands, and then we'll call it a video. Okay, this guy opens under gun, gets a flat. This is a fine defend in the big three ways. I think it's fine. Yeah, this hand we definitely made an error on the turn, and you'll see what that is in a second. Check. This guy bets pot. Have no read on him, but he's short stacking. And so basically, on a board like this, the guy flats. He's bets big. He has lots of draws. Obviously, he's got some like queen queen or queen eight x type hands as well. In general, like bottom two is not performing super good against his range, but we don't really have a read on him. He could just be messing around. So I just check call, planning to get it in on particularly good turns, like complete, deuce off deuce offsuit tray, eight or a five, obviously offsuit ace, like those types of cards, and then just check folding on particularly bad turns. He folds, comes a seven, and this is not extremely bad, but it's also not extremely good. We only pick up a gut shot. It completes some of his drawy type hands that he could have. We check. He jams for the rest. He's playing short stack. This is only for 2/3 pot, but I still think we can fold here in retrospect. It's pretty close. Like he still does have some combo draws that we are ahead of, but not very far ahead of. And then he also has hands that are smashing us, like queen eight and queens. Um, all told, I think we can maybe fold here. I'm not entirely sure, and possibly fold the flop. But with no read, I just check call. He's pretty short, and we are getting a good price. So it's questionable. I didn't love it, definitely, especially with two flush draws out there and straight out there. But we check call and we make a straight on the end against his. Indeed, he had two pair, top two, and had us in bad shape. He also had hearts, so we were in very bad shape on the turn, and we just go ahead and bink a six on him. Yep, skill game, skill game. Yeah, I'm not really sure about that turn call or the flop call against a short stacker like that. Kind of interesting. Okay, here's another hand against Red Bengal, the maniac we talked about before. So we just flat this sort of hand against him on the button in position. That's fine. We have a high suit and a pair. Definitely can make some nuttiness against him with this. They both check. I'm just going to go ahead and take a card here most of the time with only king high flush, because I don't want to start building a big pot for when I hit a flush, except unless I have like a actual nut flush. And against this guy who calls super wide, I'd just rather wait till I have value. Oh, never mind. I see bet. Actually, no. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Basically, what I was thinking was everything I just said is true when you're playing against more normal opponents. But because Red Bengal was in the hand and we're trying to stack him, and he's playing way too many hands and playing insanely, I wanted to start building a pot against him for when I hit a flush, because I'm not going to be I'm going to be happy to stack off with a king high flush against him and not be worried about a nut flush, for example, especially when he checks after having raised pre-flop. So that was why I bet this flop, because of Red Bengal's presence and how spazzy he was playing. But normally I would just check back, and I think normally that's probably better. I get called by Jeffrey Dubs, who's kind of like a not great guy who I kind of see at the table sometimes. Don't have a especially strong read on him, but he's just kind of like loose, passive, straightforward, kind of mostly. Comes king or sorry, flush card on the turn. We make the second nuts. I check back here. He definitely has some ace high flushes in his range, and just sets it up for us being able. And he doesn't have very many queens or nines or queen nines in his range, so we're not going to have to fade a board pair on the river, and then we can get a one more value bet from weaker flushes on the river. He just leads into us though, pretty big on the river, pretty easy call. Like we beat all of his flushes except his ace high flushes, and then we also beat his bluffs, so pretty easy call. and he was value betting Jack high flush, which is interesting. Um, Reasonable, but interesting. Okay, and then we'll do two more here, or three. No, yeah, maybe three more. Okay, sorry about that. We'll put this here. All right, and then here. There we go. This hand is not that. Oh, this is another heads up with this guy. Okay, we raise a very nice double suited rundown hand. He just calls. He donks half pot into me. Um, with us having no flush draws and just top pair, there's a pretty obvious just call spot. No sense in raising. Just call. King doesn't really change anything. Um, we still have an ace with a reasonable kicker against a guy who's pretty like loose aggressive, and on a board that has a lot of draws. He just donks half pot again, like 1.25 or something like that, I think, or 1.3. We tank for a while and then just call. I think that's standard, and then we make the nuts on the river. So lucky us. He probably had some weak two pair or something. He checks river. We just go for value. We go big bet on the river, as we would if we had like missed spades or something like that. Sometimes, anyways. But we've got the nuts, so we're trying to get called, and he calls, and we're good. Don't know what he had, but we're good. All right, two more hands. All right. It's kind of an interesting hand because it ended up being like multi-way. Guy opens under the gun. We overcall here with double suited eights and queen 10 8 8. So like some straightness, two suits, and a middle pair. I think that's fine. And we end up going 5 ways to the flop. Pretty crazy. Okay. Okay, and we flop middle set. It goes check, check. I decided to check here. Like, it is a monotone board. There are definitely spades out. You're pretty unlikely to get, like, say, check raised unless it's by the nut flush specifically. But five-handed, it's a lot more likely that the nut flush is out than normal. So basically, you could start betting here to start repping the nut flush, even though we don't have the blocker, and also like start building a pot in case you do fill up. But I think checking is more standard on this board 5 ways. So I check, and Thunder Donk checks back. We go ahead and bink the middle full house on this board. So like close to the nuts. Jacks obviously beat us, and deuces beat us, but not much else. Literally nothing else. We bet for value on the turn. 3 of them fold. One guy calls. Hofi, who we've noted is kind of like a regular but not great. And then he checks river. We go ahead and bet for value, and he just folds. So pretty standard. And then we'll do one more hand here. Actually, no, 2 more. Sorry. 2 more hands, fellas. 2 more hands. I have another one where I like gave up on a bluff after having 3-bet preflop. That's kind of interesting. Okay, and then here we have, oops, sorry. Here we have got single suited kings. We open from the cutoff, standard. Big blind 3-bets. This guy's a very loose, aggressive, crazy, but also doesn't 3-bet that much necessarily. So I just flat here, and we've got over 100 big blinds deep, like 110 or whatever it is. Here we flop a straight flush draw and an overpair. Goes check. The 3-better checks. I thought about betting here, but we definitely don't want to like bet and get raised on this board, even though we do have a combo draw. Like our combo draw is just not that great, and we have a combo draw and an overpair. The SPR with the big blind who 3-bet though is only about 2.5, so it's not really terrible to just bet and to bet and get it in against him who only has a 2.5 SPR. So I guess betting would be okay here, but I decided to check. Turn comes a 5, goes check, check. They both check again, and we can easily now have, and we're blocking 6-9, and we can easily have 6-9 the way we've played the hand. So I decided to start repping 6-9 at this point in the hand and follow through on a river that where the nuts don't change. So I go ahead and bet here and just take it down. Okay. And then here, go last hand that we'll review. Yeah, we were blocking 6-9 there, and we had obviously outs against whatever they had. So okay, so this is kind of interesting. Folds the small blind. Now this actually, is this the hand? Oh no, I just called here. What happened in this hand? Okay, this is not the hand I was thinking of. Um, okay, but this was Bengal, who's the total like spaz maniac. Here we have just like an under gut shot, but we also have the deuce on board, and we have back doors, and we're trying to like basically find spots to stack this guy who's playing like crazy. So like on an 8, we would be happy to get it in. Like even though we wouldn't have the nut straight, just because he's so maniacal. And on like a 3, 4, 5, 6, we have like are all really good turn cards for us. So we just call, and here we go ahead and we do pick up a pair. Now we have a pair and a wrap. So he fires again. We just call again, and we brick out on the river. Oh yeah, that's but we still end up winning this hand because he checks and we turn our no heart hand into a bluff and he folds. He was crazy, but like we definitely can have hearts the way that hand played. It's like one of our most likely hands actually, even though we don't have it. The only other hand that we really have are hands like this or like 8, 10, 6, or not 8, 10, 6. We're gonna be raising that, but or like bear 8, 10 or like Jack 10. Jack 10, 9 type hands or something like that. That we turned into a bluff. So we just decided to turn our hand into a bluff there and took it down. So that was reasonably interesting, but it wasn't the hand I was thinking of. Anyways, that's a rundown of a recent session of hands. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you think in the comment section. And yeah, any thoughts that you have on particular hands, anything that you found interesting, and be sure to like and subscribe. Tell your friends about my channel. Follow me on Twitch at The Legit, and we'll catch you later. Peace out.